Hi everybody. Hope you're all keeping well. For anyone that doesn't know me, my name is Jack Warnock and I'm a guitar player and singer from Mahara in County Derry. So yeah, I'm really glad to be asked along by Siobhan to do a guitar workshop for Flá Wargara 2020 FIFA. And yeah, today I'll just be sort of giving a bit of insight into how I look at backing tunes and how I go about making my chord choices and just a little bit on the rhythm side of things. So hopefully I'll be able to get through one or two tunes that are sort of fairly common and fairly well known in session circles and things like that. But yeah, it's great to see that CC Ballingalach are putting this all together and running this Flá War. Obviously it's kind of disappointing that we can't all be there in person and do it together, but it's nice that we can do it online instead. So they've got a whole range of different events going on, workshops and recitals and different sort of I suppose it'll be like virtual sessions and all that type of thing. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it anyways, and that's the 19th to the 23rd. Well, I suppose when this is going out, you'll probably be in that time period already. But yeah, without further ado, I am going to just get kicking on. And one thing I should just address at the start is that I'm going to be playing in standard tuning for this, because I feel like that's kind of most accessible for everybody. Although if you're playing in Dadgad or if you're playing in Drop D is my tuning of choice, then that's totally fine. You should be able to follow along with this. It's not so much about what the chords are, but just where we're putting them and things like that. So the first tune I want to take a look at is a tune called Willie Coleman's. So it's a jig in G, and usually when you're backing a tune, you can kind of look at it in a few different ways, but probably the easiest way to start off is with a 3-chord trick, and that's the idea that if you have, say, G, C, and D, you only really need those 3 chords to kind of make it through a tune and, get the guts of it. It's only after that you start adding in other chords that it'll, kind of beef it up a bit, give it a bit of shape. So say I'll maybe give the tune a play over so we can hear the tune first, and then we'll have a bit of look at the rhythm and then go into the chord end of things. So the tune itself goes like this. So that's the tune, or a very, very rough version of it at least. And if we kind of take that apart and even look at it in a bit of a sort of theory way for a second, I tend to do things quite sort of theory directed. So you've got a jig. The time signature of a jig, so the way that you count the beats and things, is 6/8. So if we take that 6, those 6 beats, 1 2 3 4 5 6, 1 2 3 4 5 6, 1 2 3 4 5 6, 1 2 3, and so on. If we take that and split that now into 2 groups of 3, so you've got 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3. We're going to try and strum that instead. So the easiest way, the first way of doing that, is to go 1 2 3 4 5 6, 1 2 3 4 5 6, 1 2 3 4 5 6, 1 2 3 4 5 6. So just strumming down and up. So we'll maybe just give that a wee quick go. So after 3, 1, and just on a G chord as well on your left hand. 1, 2, 3. So that's the first way that you can look about doing the rhythm, the strumming end of things. The second way that you can kind of take a look at it is probably the more preferred way, but it can be a bit trickier to get into. So that is using a rhythm which goes down, up, down, and you do that again. So that's how you get your 6. You've got like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up, down. And again, when you add that up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, so we'll just try that one more time, and we'll do that over G chord again. So you've got 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, down, 4, 1, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and finish. So that's the basic rhythm, and if I do them both back to back, you'll be able to kind of hear the difference that the different punch that the second rhythm gives to the tune. So say you've got, so that's just down and up, and then this is, so again, you can just hear that wee difference. I'll do just a couple more bars of it, just so you can kind of hear them back to back, and I'll maybe switch between them. So you've got verses, and again, and down, up, down. So the most important thing for that kind of down, up, down rhythm is just to try and keep it steady and give it that wee bit of a kind of lilt. So you're not just going down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up, down. There's a wee bit of that sort of down, up, down, da, 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 da. You know, like the first down should be a wee hair longer. So instead of, which sounds quite rigid and sort of stale, you get this, like you get that nice sort of bounce from side to side. That is sort of the main rhythm that I'm using with jigs. My right hand is always doing that. Even if I'm doing something crazy and all over the place and syncopated and, just a bit mad like that, that'll always be going, Whether you're just doing a couple of chords like that or something. Something a wee bit hairier like that rhythm is always just the same. So your right hand is always super steady, and that's kind of across the board in backing tunes, I find. If you're backing a reel, you shouldn't be kind of having things go totally crazy with your right hand. There are exceptions to that, like you might have wee triplets and stuff once you get into that, but even if it was a reel, you'd be, see there, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. And it just goes down and up. But we're not talking about reeds right now. So, just across the board, the right hand stays steady. It's the left hand that does all the work. So, as I say, we'll have a wee look at this Willie Coleman's jig now in the chords for it. So again, the way that I kind of approach putting chords to a tune is sort of very theory based. I tend to look at whatever notes are in the different chords, because for anybody that doesn't know about the kind of theory of a chord, basically the idea is that it's 3 notes that are repeated over and over again, like a triad. as you would call it. And anyone who plays piano, it's very easy to see, because if you take and play a chord on the piano, you have to play the 3 separate notes together. For guitar players, sometimes it's harder to see where all the different notes are, but they're there. So if we take a G chord, the kind of prime example, it's just got G's, B's and D's that repeat themselves over and over again within the chord. So depending on what way you're playing it, some people play it, say, with that 1 finger, some people play it with 2. Generally I play it with the 2, but that's just a personal choice. So if you play it like that, in drop D, it looks more like this, and then in dadgad, there's a few versions, some people play it like this. I prefer to play it something like that in dadgad, just for anybody that might want to know. So it's the 5th fret at the top, mute the 2nd string, 3rd string open, 4th fret on the 4th string, and 5th on the 5th string. And if you want, again, you can put the pinky onto the bottom there. But that's a dadgad chord, so if you're in standard tuning, you don't need to worry about that. So if I call out the notes within this chord, then you've got G, B, D, G, D, or if you leave that string open, it's a B, and then the last one is G. So it's just the same notes that are repeating themselves. Don't worry if you're still not totally sure of what I'm on about here, because it's a kind of work in progress thing. You just have to get used to it if you want to go down this route of putting chords to things. But if you do go down this route, it can really, really help when you get into some harder tunes, and it can sort of widen your horizons in terms of what chords you can play with and things like that. So if anybody's really interested in kind of going down the big route, this is it's a really useful thing to have. Just that wee bit of chord theory to kind of help you tie everything together. So that's your G chord. A C is the next one in our little 3-chord trick. And again, if I take the notes from that, so we skip the top string, and then we've got C, E, G, C, and E. And then a D chord has D, A, D, and F sharp. So, why is that important, you might ask? And it's because when we look at the tune, we're going to kind of look at each bar and look for some of the buzz notes, the important notes that are coming out there, and try and match the notes in the bar to the chord that we want to play, or to a chord that we want to play. Because a lot of the time we do have lots of different choices. You're not just tied into one chord. Anybody that knows about my playing style knows that I kind of like to just do whatever's in the head at the moment and just pick a random chord and make it fit, which is quite fun. So, say the chords that I've written out so far, and I'll run through them and kind of explain the choices, and then go back and play it properly for you. So you've got, at the very start, a G chord. Usually it'll be a G, just to match up. But as an example, the first note in the tune is a B. It goes B, G, A, and yada, yada, yada. But it starts in that B. That's an important note. And that's in our G chord, so that's why G sounds nice. I'll not try and lilt the whole thing. So you've got this. Again, if we're just looking at the first note there, it's an E. That C chord uses that E note. You can hear it there even on the bottom. Da, 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 da. And then you've got this. So it starts there in high A. And if we remember, and if you have the sheet in front of you, there's a little key at the bottom which has, all the different chords in it. So you've got da, 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 because that A note that's up there is in our D chord, just an octave lower there. Da, 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 da. And then again, the next bar is just the same, starts with a B, has the C. Sorry. And you you can finish on G. Now, you'll notice if you're looking at the notes that I have a little red C in brackets there. And that is because, personally, I don't like to finish parts on whatever you would call the tonic, which is the chord, the first chord in the key. So say we're in the key of G, that's a G chord. If we're in the key of D, it's a D chord. I don't like to really finish parts on that unless they sort of definitely have to be. Usually hornpipes and barn dances kind of lend themselves to that. And that's just a personal preference. I find that if you finish on those chords, it can maybe sound a bit, closed and sort of very finished each time you go around the part. So I'll run through the second part and then kind of come back to this point a wee bit more. So you've got, in the second part, it starts off on the high G. So we'll just play a G chord. This is just the same. And then you've got this G, B, D, C, or G, B, D, E. So I'm matching that up with the C chord. Mostly because it matches the E at the end rather than the G that's at the start of that little, couple of beat section. But that's grand. And then you've got this D. So I match that up with a D chord. Da, 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 and then say G. Da, 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 dum. But again, I have the little C in there. So even if I just kind of play that last bar going back into the repeat of the B part, the second part, then you can have da 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 dum ba. That's what it sounds like with the G. Versus if I use the little C that's in brackets, you've got da 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 dum ba. See how the C chord actually kind of leads back into the start of the part rather than sounding very closed and finished. That's just something that I like to do personally, but to each their own and all of that. So I'll give it a playthrough. I'll do it with the down up down rhythm, and just we'll follow the chords here. So you'll notice I have the beats written below each chord, just so that you can kind of follow along with the beats of things. So we're gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. C, 1, D, 3, 4, and G, 2, 3, 4, and C, and we'll hold on the C for this. We'll use the brackets. 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, and C, D, G, 2, 3, C, and we'll hold on it. 3, B part. And 1, C, 2, 4, and G, D, C, and G. C, G, D, and C, and finish on G. So, that's a kind of rough run through of what I would call the kind of bass chords. That's a really good base to start off on. And you can see how it's not just doing G to C to D all the time. It definitely does that here and there because it sounds good, but it doesn't just have to do that all the time. Sometimes it actually needs to be even simpler, like in that second part where we go G, G again, and then C. So down below that I have a kind of more rounded, more kind of filled out version of the chords where I've just kind of written in some extra things. So this time we're adding in some of the minor chords, and again it's just using the same logic. where I'm trying to match up with some of the notes that are actually in the tune, and match a chord that sounds nice with them, and just sort of create a whole picture using that. So this time we're adding in E minor and A minor, your E minor, your A minor, and yeah, I've also got a little G/B in there, or G over B. So that is just that. It's essentially a G chord, but we don't play the top string. So the way that sounds when you hear it is, you can just hear the bass move a little bit. So you've got, and that's a handy wee trick for, say, the likes of, in the sort of bass version, we were doing 4 beats of G. But if we wanted to keep it moving, we could play G and then G over B, and give them 2 beats each. So you're still doing 4 bars of a G chord of some sort, but it's just not necessarily, just not necessarily the same thing. It helps to keep it moving on and keep it running a bit. So I'm going to try play the first version, once a bit slower and then once a bit faster. We'll have a break and then cut into playing the second one again, once a bit slower and once a bit faster. And this time we're going to try and keep those down, up, down rhythms going if we can. But you're totally welcome to do the just down and up if you're struggling with it. So with that being said, here goes. So 1, 2, C, D, G, 1, 2, 3, C, and we'll hold on to the C, 3, 4, and A part again. C, D, G, 2, 3, C, and hold on to it. G, and hold on. C, G, D, and we'll go to C. B part again. C, G, 1, 2, 3, D, and G. Okay, and a bit faster. 1, 2, 3, 4. C, D, G, C, hold on to it, C, hold, G, C, G, D, C, G, C, G, D, G. Okay. And now we'll run through the other version of it, just again, kind of slower and then a bit faster. 1, 2, 3, 4. Over B, C, and again just a bit faster. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, so that's a quick run through Willie Coleman's in two kind of different versions. And just to finish things off, I am going to play a recording of the tune. I will play the back and behind it, and I'll do it just that wee bit quicker kind of session pace, I suppose. And yeah, you should be able to see everything. I'll maybe take it one more time and just kind of see where things go, if there's anything that pops into my head. But we'll see. We'll improvise that one. But yeah, you should have the notes for this, and you can sort of start to get a grasp of where I'm approaching the tune from in terms of chords and things. Yeah, it's the sort of thing that can take a while to get into, but definitely it's well worth it when you do get those sort of that knowledge of being able to match notes in a tune to chords, and kind of picking out the tasteful ways of doing it. Because if you picked out every single note in a whole tune, you'd be changing chord literally every 2 seconds. So it just comes with kind of being tasteful and knowing where you're picking your chords at. But definitely that rhythm is something that is also just totally invaluable. So that rhythm will work for jigs and for slip jigs. And more or less for everything else, I tend to just go down and up. Although there are different kind of, flows within that and things like that. But in terms of the actual physical motion, that's what it is. So, yeah, I think that's more or less everything. But yeah, if anyone has any questions, then you can give me a shout. My Facebook page is Jack Warnock Music, or you can find me at jwarnockmusic@gmail.com, just if anybody has any questions. I'm doing a fair bit of teaching at the minute, so that's always good. But if anybody has any inquiries about that, just get in touch with me, and we'll see if we can squeeze you in somewhere. And once again, thanks to Siobhan and CC Banya for having me along and asking me to do this. Yeah, it's definitely it's a different experience doing it from behind a camera, but here's hoping that we'll be able to do it again sometime soon. But yeah, here we go. I'll give it one more replay just to finish this out. So this is Willie Coleman's, our sort of basic version, and then our more advanced one, and we'll see where things go from there, maybe another time. So 1, 2, 3, 4. that last one definitely went a bit off book, but I hope you kind of get the idea of where I'm coming from. Where I'm going to. So yeah, once again, thanks very much, everybody. Take care of yourselves.